Cool. Well, it looks like people are here, so I guess we can get started. Um, Hi again, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Sabby, for your kind words in the chat. Riley and I are here to talk about our internship experiences, and then hopefully Duong Nguyen is going to be here later to participate in the Q&A session. So Riley and I are going to talk about our experiences and also about resumes and cover letters. And I'm going to talk a little bit about portfolios too. So after we talk, we're going to open it up to Q&A. But if you have any questions throughout, please feel free to use the chat, the Q&A section. And if we see them and we want to answer them during the presentation, we can do that too. So I will let Riley take the floor with his talk.
It was my mistake to put my PowerPoints in first. I'm just kidding. Okay, so yeah, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Riley. I'm a junior here at Cal State Fullerton studying animation. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about my internship at Nickelodeon that I have this semester. So despite not feeling like super qualified to talk that much about getting internships, I basically kind of got a the way that I like got into the whole internship like talking phase, I guess, which is kind of the important part of it, is I signed up for this like portfolio review at Animation Expo. This is a picture of me and my family at Animation Expo. Oh, we look so cute. But I just like signed up for it, kind of not thinking much of it, just trying to take any opportunity I could to have people look at my portfolio, look at my resume. And they are very lovely. Thank you, Sabby. And so, yeah, I went to Animation Expo and I got an opportunity to meet with some of the recruiters, and they were able to look over my resume and my cover letter and kind of give me some pointers before I even applied for the Nickelodeon program. So this is kind of like, I only bring up this story because it's kind of the only thing that I see in my head as being like very proactive in terms of like seeking out recruiters and trying to like put my best foot forward in terms of getting an internship, which is something that I was trying to do that summer. And yeah, so you can go to the next slide, Madison, if you want. And that is where I ended up. So talking to the recruiters at Nickelodeon, and basically like all throughout the summer, because I guess what CTN was like the end of spring, I want to say, or maybe beginning of spring. And so I'd been like messaging the people that I had met and like thanking them. And I'd been like, thank you so much. It was great meeting you. Like, these are the tips that I've implemented. And it was just a lot of like trying to be in contact with them as much as possible. And so then I kept talking with the recruiter and I got another call and they were like, hey, we'd love to interview you for the Nickelodeon production internship for the summer. And I was like, wow, this is like amazing. Like I didn't even anticipate seeing the portfolio review as a like way to get in. But because like I got along with the recruiters really well when I did the portfolio review and we like bonded about some things and I brought up like things that were personal about me. She like remembered my name and remembered all the things that I said during our one-on-one time. And so she was really nice and was like, I'd love to talk to you more about the opportunity because I had just applied for the summer program. So we kept talking and I got an interview scheduled, and that was right when COVID hit. So they canceled their internship program for the summer, and I was left with no summer job and just kind of went back, moved with my parents, and just like worked on art, I guess, as much as I could. And just kind of, everyone did their own thing during COVID. It was a brutal time, but even during that time, I was like, thank you so much. Like, it was an honor even just to get an opportunity to like interview. And I'd love to like stay in touch after all this, or if you guys decide to do a virtual internship. And so I had probably emailed the recruiter Amy like 3 times during that summer, just like continuing to mention like, these are still my interests. I still would really love to work here, like in any capacity. And so then the next semester started, and it was still canceled. And then this semester started, and I got a call from her, and she was like, "Hi, we finally decided to like do a virtual internship, and we'd love to like bring you on board. Like we know you've been reaching out a lot, and we'd love to like we know you kind of got gypped the summer before, like you didn't even get your interview, so we'd love to have like an interview with you." And I was like, wow, this is awesome. Like I didn't like have to apply a bunch of times. It was just me keeping in touch with this recruiter that I had connected with at CTN. um, and so I did the interview, and it went great. And I took another interview, and it went great. So they brought me on as a production intern on the new SpongeBob spinoff, Camp Coral, and that's where I've been pretty much working this whole semester with classes. Um, yeah, so that's kind of how I got here. I guess I'll talk a little more about um, kind of what I do like in that position. If you want to go to the next one, Madison. Yeah, so what I do at Nick. So as a production internship, I'm sure most of you know, but production is kind of separate from like the more artistic roles in animation. So they do more of the like scheduling of meetings and like basically corralling all the artists into the places they need to be to give their input on different things. So I've kind of just put myself in any position where I can watch the creatives work and be as helpful as I can to the process. One of the things that we're doing a lot on our show, because it's a CG show, is we ship all of our animation overseas. And so when we get it back, we have to review the animation with all of our producers and directors, and basically take those notes, compile them, and send them back so that um, our studio in India can fix all of the animation issues that we find when they send it to us. Um, so that's a big part of it. It's like the communication between the teams. But on top of that, there's an in-house pipeline, which I'm sure y'all have heard of a lot. So there's a lot of like taking notes for that and organizing everything as far as like when an episode needs to go out, when the boards need to be done, when a pitch is going to the network so that they can approve it to keep going forward. Um, yeah, so that's been a lot of the like typical pipeline stuff. Um, yeah, and it's been really interesting because I've always been someone who wants to go into 2D. And when I was interviewing, they had kind of given me the option to explore like an interview with the CG SpongeBob show or the like original 2D show. And I kind of just opted to go with the 3D one just to kind of go outside my comfort zone. And I've definitely learned a lot about like how that process works and how 3D works, despite it not being something that I have a lot of experience in. Yeah, so that's kind of like a day to day what I do. But still at the heart, like I do want to do artistic stuff with my career. So I try to take any like artistic opportunities or opportunities where I can watch artists work and kind of learn from that. Yeah. So I guess go to the next one, Madison. This is advice that I got I don't remember where I heard this, but I thought it was a really good like sentiment. And this was kind of like the only reason that I got the internship is because I followed this advice is be a person, not a resume. At the end of the day, recruiters are like, they're looking at hundreds, if not thousands. I don't know about thousands, but a lot of resumes a day, and they're not spending a lot of time on them. Um, and they're just pieces of paper. So unless you have like a personal connection or you've like reached out to them and they like know that you're more than just that piece of paper, it's going to be really hard for them to differentiate what's a good resume and a bad resume because they can't see the person that's behind it. So that's something that I've kind of lived by in terms of when I'm applying to things. I try to first like make a connection and say something personal that they can remember about me that makes me a person and not a resume. Yeah. So if you can go to the next one, thanks. So this is building a relationship with a recruiter. This is basically what I just said, but getting hired is all based on how you've connected with a recruiter. And this is definitely more for a production internship. I'm sure Madison will speak more about the the process of getting into more of an artistic internship, because that relies a lot more on your portfolio and stuff like that. But definitely for production, um, it's very helpful to have that like personality, because at the end of the day, like really anyone could probably do a production job if they're trained well, but what makes you like unique is like your ability to work with people, your ability to be like optimistic, your ability to like be timely and stuff like that. And those are all things that are really hard to show through a resume unless you have like relevant experience, or unless you're like typing out um, your job with those things in mind. So that's something also that's really helpful to do in your resume, is to say like, what are qualities of this job that they want, and how can I like show that I've had those qualities in past jobs. Connect without the intention to impress. This is another one that I like tried to keep in mind a lot. I think when you're like talking to recruiters or talking to people that have say in whether or not you get a position, it's really easy to be like, oh, here are like a million things that I've done. Like, look at how amazing I am. Like all these like shiny things that you have in your arsenal. And I think at the end of the day, it all comes down to just like, who is this person? Like, are they like someone that's friendly? Are they someone that's um, like a unique person, someone that's fun to be around? Because everyone wants a fun work environment at the end of the day. And yeah, but like going in without an intention, like specifically to impress them, and to just see them as people too, instead of, thank you, instead of uh, like a list of accomplishments. I think that is more helpful than anything else that you can bring to the table. Yeah. So if you can go to the next one. So staying connected, this is after you meet with them the first time, after you're trying to make that connection so that they remember you. This is all, this is probably the most important part, and one of the only other things that I can think of that I did to get me into an internship, is just follow-up emails. I sent one like every, I think 3 months was my timeline for that. And I would just try to connect with the people that I met specifically, because they're the ones that are like, oh, you're the guy that like wore this shirt. Like I had worn, I don't remember what I wore, but I I had like mentioned something or worn something to several different events, and that's like what I bring up in my email and be like, oh, if you remember, like I was wearing this, or like if you remember, I said this. Those are all like really easy ways to be like, okay, they're thinking in their brain, do I remember that? And if it's memorable, then they will. And then they can kind of connect that to your resume and be like, oh, this is the face, this is the resume, this is a person, not a resume. So yeah, it all connects. Fancy. um, but yeah, that's key, is following up in emails and staying connected and making sure that they understand that you're still interested. And one of the things that I was like super interested was Nickelodeon specifically. I've like loved their company forever, and I love all of their stuff. So it was like really easy for me to be like, hey, this is something I'm passionate about. Like I love your production company. I'd love to work there. Um, and yeah, all of my emails basically had that at the center. And I think a lot of recruiters want to hear that you're like, they can like make your dream come true. Like that's what they want to do, and that's why they're more inclined to give positions to people that they like have met, because they can like picture their faces when they're happy, and when they're like proud that they got something that they wanted. Um, and ask questions to maintain dialogue. This one's also really helpful. It's there's different kind of emails. You could just be like, hey, thank you so much, that was awesome, and that doesn't really lead anywhere. You're not like seeming like a curious person, you're not seeming like someone that wants to learn, which is kind of the whole role of an intern. um, and so like asking questions in those emails is also super helpful, to maintain a dialogue and not just have it end after one email, because that's kind of brutal too. Another thing that I've heard a lot of times from recruiters and just people that I work with in general is that like sometimes they just get a ton of emails in a day, and so they won't see it. So if it's been like 2 weeks and they haven't responded to your email, you can just send a follow-up like or reply to your own email and be like, hey, I'm just like sending this so that it goes to the top of your inbox. I'm not sure if you saw it the first time, but no rush. I just wanted to make sure you saw it. And no one's ever offended by that. Yeah. Keep connections even if you don't succeed right off the bat. Yeah, that's helpful too. No, you're good. You're good, Madison.
Sorry.
I think I said everything that I wanted to about this slide, so I think we're good. No worries. Okay, confidence. This is also very key. I think a lot of people undersell themselves and kind of don't see their accomplishments as like things that make them deserve like to get a position. And it's really hard because there is a lot of competition out there for internships and positions, and everyone's talking about, oh, I want an internship. And it's hard to be like, oh, what do I have that someone else doesn't have? But I think confidence is like one of the key things, especially when interviewing, that'll make you stand out from other people. If you can like pinpoint, even if they're like small things, like for example, like I hadn't done a bunch of stuff going into this internship. I had done the 24-hour animation challenge, and I could identify the like growth that I had gained from doing that. And so that's like basically all I talked about in my interview. And so it wasn't like a big accomplishment at the end of the day. It was just like, it's a 1 day thing, like more for fun than anything. But because I was able to like talk about it and be like, these are the things I learned from it. This is what I know about myself after doing that. It made it seem like much more of an accomplishment than it was, because to me it was. And like, it doesn't have to be some grand accomplishment. You could finish like a web comic or something like that. And it could have like 4 views, and someone like from an external perspective, someone would be like, oh, like, what is that? Like you like put something on the web and like 4 people looked at it. But if you're like, oh, I had to learn time management, and I had to learn to like get things, I don't know, like rendering, or like I had to learn all these things, and this is like how I grew as a person doing it, then that is an accomplishment, and you deserve to like be recognized for that, not just by yourself. Yeah, so you deserve it just as much as anyone else. That's something to keep in mind when you're like going for these positions. Don't look at your resume and be like, oh, I don't have like 10 other internships on here and this other person does. Think about like how you have grown as a person and how you can like make that the center point of your resume, because that's especially what they care about in internships. They want to see how you can grow and how being an intern can help you grow as well. Yeah, so hopefully I explained that well. Okay, so now I'll just go over some like tips and stuff that I've learned about resumes and cover letters. I'm not an expert at it, but I've heard enough resume and cover letter talks to kind of get some ideas. And then I had a talk the other week from some of the Nick recruiters talking specifically about how they look at resumes and cover letters. So that's kind of the gist of what I'm putting into this information. Okay, so these are mine. These are before I had that talk. I still use this one. It's more just here so that you guys can see how I formatted mine. It's not the way that you need to format yours by any means at all. The only thing that I really like about it is like the skills. I like having those images there. I think it kind of puts some color on it and makes it stand out a little bit. And yeah, just some white space on the page is something that a lot of recruiters talk about. They don't want it to just like all be text. They want to see some white space in there. Yeah. And then the cover letter formatting for that is pretty standard. But I guess the only thing is having them together, like consistency and brand or style. Like I have the same text for both, so that's something that might be worth keeping in mind. And then I'll go more in depth into like what to put in them in the next couple slides. But yeah, it's just a visual marker for it. Okay, so this is some advice that I took that I think you typically hear in a lot of like talks about resumes and cover letters. Is get as many honest eyes as possible. one of my roommates is like really critical of things, and he's always the best person to like come in, and he'll be like, yeah, that looks awful. Like I have no idea what's going on here. Um, as much as I hate to hear that, like that's like what I need to hear so that I don't like get in my own head and I'm like, oh yeah, this looks great. So finding people like that can look at your resume and like tell you what's wrong with it is really helpful. And also just having a number of people look at it, because at the end of the day, like you don't know which person is going to be closest to a recruiter's eyes. Like it could be your mom, it could be, I mean, probably not your dog, but it could be like your little brother could be like similar in terms of how they would look at things. And so having more eyes on it is always going to be better than having less. Yeah, I guess my second one basically explains that way better than I said it. Many viewpoints can catch what isn't visually appealing or what isn't clear. So if like one person just completely doesn't understand like what you're trying to say, or like what a, hold up, I think my headset just turned off. Okay, sorry. Um, yeah, if someone like doesn't understand what you're trying to say, or like they just get like really bored by your resume, like that's some advice that you might want to take, if there's someone that you trust, especially. And then check grammar and spelling 20 times. I am the worst at grammar and spelling, so I just throw it in Grammarly and then give it to my parents. And I'm like, hey, can you read this, please? For some reason, parents tend to have a really good eye for grammar, or at least mine do. I don't know if that's universal or a generational thing. I think my schooling didn't teach me good grammar. So I'm gonna blame them and not myself. Okay, yeah, you can go to the next one, Madison. Yeah, okay, so this is like specifically from the Nick recruiters, and these are just like the easy things to implement, you know? They're not like the what do I put in? They're more of the like, okay, how when they're looking at a resume, like what makes them go, really? They decided to like put in what's that font that everyone hates? Do you know
Like sans serif, is
what?
that it? I
Yeah,
think
Comic Sans or something.
Comic
Yeah,
Sans, that's
Comic
it.
Sans, that's the one. Yeah, like I mean, obviously don't put Comic Sans, but these are yeah, the recruiters at Nick also said Times New Roman is not something that they like to see that much. So using the font as like a way to kind of put some personality in there. Um, yeah, that's a good point. Not all parents, but someone should have good grammar, Audrey. So try to find those people, and there's good resources at like Laura Neal is a great resource, and there's like the career center and stuff like that. So those people are really great at looking it over too. Um, yeah, so Times New Roman apparently sucks. People don't like it, or at least recruiters don't like it. Honestly, it is a pretty boring font at the end of the day. So I agree with that. Um, yeah, what was I going to say about reference the job description? Oh, okay, yeah. So if you're like looking at a job or like an internship, it's helpful to look at the description of that internship and the things that like you're going to be doing there, and try to use language that kind of mimics what it says in the job description. Like for example, if it's like, oh, like you'd be doing script coverage, or you'll be formatting Photoshop files, like try to put somewhere like that, Photoshop, and try to put somewhere that like, or like I don't know, maybe watch a YouTube video on like script coverage and then be like, oh, I've dabbled in script coverage, or like if you've done it at a past job or like during one of your classes. I mean, script coverage is probably not a great example because I've never done that either, but I know people say it a lot, so I brought it up. But yeah, try to use like language that feels like it relates to a job, basically. Um, Using quantifying numbers in description. This is one that really stood out to me because it's not one that I implemented at all. But when you're like vague in your descriptions of your past jobs and stuff, and like or like if you put like PMC on your resume, right? That you're like a member, be like, instead of being like, I attend many events, using numbers that like actually justify the amount of events that you've gone to, or like the amount of time that you've spent doing it, like that is something that really stands out to recruiters, apparently, because they're able to say, oh, this is a lot. whereas maybe you're not gonna, yeah, it is really good advice. Yeah, I can't think of the like exact justification, but it's really helpful to be like, oh, these are the exact amount of time that I put into this. So like if they're thinking like it's less than it actually was, you're not like underselling yourself. And then the last one is file naming conventions. This is kind of a like really important one, especially like something that you don't learn that much in school, is like naming your files correctly. Like having your first and last name in it with resume instead of just being like resume dot PDF or whatever. Make sure that it has that, because in recruiters like files, if yours is just named resume.pdf and there's like 30 other resume.pdfs, they're gonna start doing the little dash, the little, what is it, parenthesis number parenthesis thing, and you could be resume parenthesis 14 like close parenthesis dot PDF, and that is not easy to find if you're like, oh, I need to find John Phillipson's resume. It's much easier to find if it's John Phillipson underscore resume. Also, underscores are better than spaces, just in general.
Before we go to the next slide, Riley, we've got 2 questions, and I can help answer them too. But
yeah.
If you want, if that's okay, or we can wait.
Okay. No,
okay.
I can.
Yeah. Somebody asks, what did you use to create your resume?
That one's helpful. For me, I did Photoshop. That's just the program that I know the best. I don't know if that's like the most helpful, but I would just do it in something that you're comfortable with, to be honest. What about you?
Yeah, for me, I really like, I don't remember which one it is. It's either Google Docs or Microsoft Word, but they've got like resume templates and they look pretty good. So I kind of took one of those and edited it, took it into Adobe Acrobat and like, you know, shifted, moved things around, and then basically worked off of that. So I recommend like Google Docs or Microsoft Word, the resume templates. They've got a bunch of different examples, and like they have like, you know, skill sections and everything all lined up for you. So you can just, you know, pick which one you like the best, and then, you know, make it your own. Because like in Adobe Acrobat, you can add artwork if you want to, or anything else really. So that's what I use. And then one more question. Keely asks, have either of you encountered the how have you, like in quotes, how have you dealt with a difficult situation interview question, and how did you answer it?
You can start this one if you want, Madison.
Okay. Keely, that's a good question. And yes, I have before. I won't go into the specifics of like what I said because it was quite a crazy situation. But like I watched this video, and this is a resource we're gonna share later from a career center advisor for, I think, this cinema and television arts or communications here at Cal State Fullerton, Cassandra Thompson. And she did a video covering that. And I followed her structure, which was basically, you know, like the main thing you want to make sure you do in that kind of situation is highlight the result. Don't just say, you know, like this is the situation, it was bad, this is how I dealt with it. Like make sure you include what was the result. Did the person, you know, maybe a person wasn't listening to you, or you had some difficulties working with someone, and maybe, you know, you communicated better, and then as a result, you worked as a team better. So I mean, it can be really anything, like whether it's, you know, work experience or, you know, any situation you've been in. But I would just say highlight the result and make sure that's crystal clear. And yeah, as you think of them, like what examples you'd use, try to think of like an example that I guess could lean towards teamwork, communication, those kind of skills. So what situation did you showcase that skill?
Yeah, I think I got a similar question in my interview. And I think, yeah, I think I brought up the 24-hour just because that was like my go-to thing that I was really proud of at the time. I just finished doing it. And yeah, so I brought that up again, and that one's obviously like has its challenges. I tried to like mention any like leadership that I like brought to a team, and like anything specific that I did to help And that was, I think, a pretty good answer. Just to like bring up qualities that you could also bring to the team if you were hired. So like anything that you think, and this kind of goes back to like referencing the job description, but like if you know that going in, if you can find a position where like you had been under pressure and you had still displayed those like qualities that they're looking for in the job, like I think that's a really good way to answer the question. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want me to go to the next slide now?
Yeah, sure. Okay, for cover letters, this is advice that I learned as well. A chance to express why you want to work at the job and what makes you think you would excel at it. Why do you love animation, or why do you love the mission of the company? Most of my cover letters are just kind of gassing up the company and being like, y'all are so great. I love you guys so much. I wish I could work there. But after I got this advice, it was a lot of, I added a lot about why I think I would be like helpful to the team, and why I want to work there so much. Like instead of just saying like, oh, you guys are great, like these are the things that you've done. Like I don't think they care about that much. I think it's much more valuable to say like, these are things like experiences that I've had, and like this is how they relate to me wanting to work at your studio. Most studios are looking for a good fit, meaning they're looking for someone who has values, who values the studio's mission. There's another thing that I heard from the Nickelodeon recruiters specifically. Like at the end of the day, and this is mainly speaking for like internships and production, but like they want people that are easy to work with, and especially if it's a place like Nickelodeon or Disney or like Cartoon Network or any of these like studios that put a lot of the focus in their like workplace relations and their like work atmosphere. They want to like see that you have those values that their studio has, and like that you will make the working environment a good place. So yeah, including some words about how you would fit into the studio's atmosphere is also super helpful. Yeah. And work hard, they can tell. Don't worry too much about like the application process. I mean, like do your best on it, but at the end of the day, like you're not gonna have anything to talk about if that's all you worry about. Like you got to worry about other things and like doing the things that you love to do so that you can talk about them. Like if you love like web comics, or if you love like making YouTube videos, like don't stop doing those just so that you can like put time into your resume. Like it is important, but you're not going to have anything to talk about, and you're not going to like be yourself, which is what they really want at the end of the day, if you're like ruining yourself to like create a resume. Yeah, I think that was my last slide.
Let's see. Yes. Okay.
Cool.
Awesome. Thanks, Riley. Okay, I will talk about my experience at Netflix. But before that, since we're on the topic of cover letters and resumes, I'm going to start talking about those to continue off of Riley, and then I will talk about Netflix. So some of this might have a little overlap, but if so, I'll just skim over it. But some other, thanks, Savvy. Some other things to know, additional things, about resumes, and a lot of this is in relation to what Riley was saying, is, one page only, and it's a collection of your education / work history, a document of achievements, that's constantly being updated, and easy on the eyes. Like Riley's, as you could see, it was clear, concise, and very well designed and very appealing. And then personalized also, like Riley's. Mine's not so personalized. Mine's definitely not, perfect. It's like we said, it's a work in progress. But that's another thing you can or can't, you don't have to, but if you want to, I think it doesn't hurt at all. Some things resumes are not play-by-play for every job you've ever had. You want to make sure that you tailor your resume to a specific job. So, there's some instances where you want to show, customer service experience, and some internships where you maybe don't. I don't know. I am always, swapping out, should I put my my school experience, the classes I've taken, or like PMC, or the customer service job, and you want to make sure that you tailor it specifically and do not make it chronological. You want to make sure you have the most relevant experience, no matter, when it was, because that's a mistake I made a while back. And then also, it's not a place for personal bio unless it's specifically asked for, whereas DreamWorks internships, they ask for that. So make sure you do it, they say to. They don't care how many Disney movies you've watched and how you've drawn your whole life. That's not what the resume is for. And similar to what Riley said, everybody who's applying for these jobs are probably passionate about animation and loves the films that the studio produces. So try to see if you can, dive a little bit more in your cover letter, not in the resume. And then it's not the place to put your home address, no height, no weight, no eye color either. That is completely irrelevant. So don't do that. And it's not a place for references either. So there you go. And then some things to try to include on your resume, like Riley said, so this is repetition, but try to include as many numbers as you can. How long was your short film? How many props did you create? How many people do you work with? Like when I list PMC, I say I work with a team of 19 officers, because that gives you a good sense of the team. And then for 24-hour animation, I said I made a 30-second film, so they understand, these numbers, and it also catches the eye. And then education, you want to make sure your education is at the top of your resume until you get your first experience. Then you want to send it to the bottom. That's advice that I learned from Cliff Cramp. And then add hyperlinks. So if you have your LinkedIn profile, your website on your resume, make sure that it's a hyperlink. So if somebody clicks it, they can click it, but also have the name, because if you just have, it says LinkedIn or website, and imagine they print that out, they're just going to see website, LinkedIn. You want to make sure it's good in every format that you're prepared if they're going to print it, if not. And then this is something that Cassandra Thompson talked about, including soft skills. She said, like you would say to someone, you wouldn't say to someone, oh, I'm so hilarious. I'm just the funniest person you have ever met, without ever telling a joke. They're not going to believe you. They're like, okay, prove it. So try to lean against saying things like, I am loyal, I am passionate, I am a hard worker. Show that through your experience. And that's where, you can use those examples in your cover letter, and then you can say what you did in your resume. And so this is, like Riley, I thought it'd be nice to just share at least what mine looks like. So I've got like bullet points. I've been told like three on average bullet points. And then I've got experience at the top, education at the bottom. And then, hard skills. So we've got like programs and stuff like that. And then one page only. And then as you can see, it's not just LinkedIn, it's LinkedIn / my name, my actual link, and that kind of stuff. And then I also, this is my decision, but I added relevant coursework, and, you can or can't, whatever you prefer, but I thought, using that experience can help. Yeah. And then cover letter, some cover letter tips. These are from Cliff Cramp. He is a illustration professor and one of our faculty advisors, if you don't know him. He says the first paragraph should be how you found the position and why you want to apply for it. Second paragraph should be your experience. Discuss points from your resume in more detail. So pick out, those relevant experiences, and don't just say, again, I did this, like what your resume said. Try to expand on it and give specific examples. And then third is your conclusion. So just remember to thank them for reading your letter. And another thing that that Alexis, actually, who is an alumni, Alexis, I don't know how to pronounce her last name, Jaguar. I always think, I don't know, but Alexis has lots of great advice. And Alexis recommends not to thank them at the beginning of your cover letter, because it's kind of like you're signing off. So wait till the end to say that thank you. And then, oh, Alexis, you're here. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. I never know how to pronounce your last name, Alexis. But thank you for being here. Hauriji. Okay, Hauriji. I am so embarrassing myself. Okay. Hauriji. Hauriji. Okay, thank you, Alexis. And I am so sorry. And then these are Alexis's suggestions, another format to use, which is your intro slash a hook. And then second would be your heart slash why you got into animation. Like Riley was talking about, why animation inspires you, and specific media from the studio. That's something I remember you mentioned, Alexis. I think it's a great note. Something specific that the studio made can, help make that cover letter even stronger. And then conclusion. So this is where, another way where you can put your skills and list how you're excited to learn for the opportunity and the asset that you can be for them. And then some cover letter general notes, like Riley did, match your heading of your resume to your cover letter so it's consistent. Cover letters are about what you can bring to a company, not what a company can do for you. I think there's some instances, at least this is what I've done, where I say, like, I'm excited to, I listed what I can do, but I'm also excited to learn, because this is, they know it's a learning experience, but you want to make sure you think of yourself as an asset and consider what you bring to the company. And then, this is your opportunity to expand your resume and give specific examples. And something Laura Neal taught me is, there's no room for fat or frosting. Get straight to the meat, straight to the core of the cake. No flourishes, no, yes, a meat cake. Try to keep your sentences concise and short, and make sure every sentence, every word is making that positive statement where you are proving something that you're doing, and don't try to have like these long lead ups. Just say, I did this. These are the experiences, as best you can. And then try to be, passionate, like Riley was talking about. Show your respect for the studio. Never assume or suggest that you can make the work better. Like, hey, you guys aren't the best, so you need me. Never say that. That'd be bad. And don't come across as like a fanboy or a fangirl begging for the job. You want to show who you are as a professional, because a lot of people like their content, but what makes you stand out? Being able to work alongside them. And then do your best to address your letter to a specific recruiter at the studio. If not, I remember being told, like, Dear Recruitment should be fine. But it shouldn't be too hard. You can just look up like Illumination Recruiter on LinkedIn, and you'll usually find someone. And then, don't thank them until the end. So this is my cover letter that I sent to Netflix Animation back in March last year. So I structured it more towards Cliff's structure. So I talked about myself and why I like Netflix. I didn't mention any specific projects because they didn't really have any at the time, because they're so new. And then I talked about like my experiences and finished it up. And the shorter you can make your cover letters, the better. And then this is just a recent one. I just applied for DreamWorks, I think. Yeah, DreamWorks TV, their story trainee position. And I mentioned like what I did at Netflix, and kind of, in my resume, I had the bullet points, but this is the opportunity to develop that a little bit more and give more specific examples. And then, as you can see, the header and everything is still the same as my resume. So there's that consistency. Hopefully that helps. Okay, moving on to portfolios. So school projects are great. That's all I had for my portfolio for Netflix, just all my school projects from Chuck's storyboarding class. I've been told like around 2 to 3 storyboard samples. I think 3 is like the sweet spot, is ideal. I'm working on mine right now. I've got more than that, so I need to clean it up myself. It's always a work in progress. And then as of length, just long enough to tell a story, but not too long. I think 200 might be. Every studio has a different preference, so I'd check in with them. That's kind of up in the air, unless anyone has comments in the chat. And just have a clear beginning, middle, and end. And these portfolio tips, by the way, are all for storyboarding, because I'm speaking from a storyboarding perspective, because this is the internship I got. So I'm not speaking about anything else right now. And then including life drawings and cafe sketches, that's a must. and try to tell a story in everything you create. You know, try to capture a story in your gestures, your cafe sketches. Animal and wildlife drawings, those are great to include. And comics, I still need to include some comics in mine. And then make sure it's in a step-through format where recruiters can click one panel at a time. I haven't heard anything against that, but I have heard, you know, multiple recruiters saying don't have it as, you know, all the panels just there so you can look. They'll want to click through it. But that also depends on the studio, so always double check. But I would lean on, you know, something one panel at a time. Okay, and then just to give you a quick little look at what mine looks like if you're interested, this is how I format it. So as you can see, it's one panel at a time for everything, just clicking through one panel. And then before that, I've got stuff that has like, you know, character, like concepts, like rough stuff, not like a character design portfolio, some thumbnails, life drawings, animal drawings, observation drawings, and just some other sketch work if you want, but that was just my own decision. And you can see I have too many on here, so I have to fix that. And then the way I got that format is through LinkedIn SlideShare. So if you want a storyboard portfolio, I highly recommend you use this site. It's free because it's a part of LinkedIn. So just to show you really quick, the way I upload my work, if you're interested, you know, make an account, you go to upload, select files, and then basically you upload PDFs. It's super simple. And the way I create the PDFs, I export, you know, layer comps in Photoshop into JPEGs, create a new PDF in Adobe Acrobat with those JPEGs, and then upload it here. And then you just use your title, test art, and then you do that kind of stuff. Tag it as many tags as you want. Publish, super easy, super simple. And then you go to edit. Oh, no, not edit. Share, there we go. Share, embed, copy, and then whatever website format you're using, they should have an embed, you know, option when you edit it, and then you just post it. And this is how it looks when you embed that link. So it's pretty simple. I recommend that format because that's what I really like. If that hopefully helps. And yeah, LinkedIn SlideShare. Okay, back to the presentation. These are some artists if you want to screenshot. They're all storyboard artists. I really like their portfolios, and I just highly recommend you check them out. We have some alumni in the list too, but they've all got, you know, different formats. Some are similar, some are very different, but I think all work really well. So there you go. And then on to the next thing, some resources. We've got Alexis's resume and cover letter PDFs. Those are in the PMC Discord if you're not a part of that. And I think they're under the resources tab on there, but Alexis goes into much greater depth and detail on resumes and cover letters. They're super, super helpful. So I highly recommend you check those out. And if you have trouble finding it, reach out to any PMC officer and we can direct you to that resource. Laura Neal and the CS2F Career Center. Laura Neal is amazing. She's the best thing, like one of the best things at Cal State Fullerton. She is an arts career advisor, and I don't know if she still is the one to look at portfolios and resumes, but they've got portfolio and cover letters and resumes, workshops and review sessions whenever you're available and want to schedule. Oh, she still does. Okay, cool. So I can't even tell you. I've probably gone to Laura Neal like 15 times with like a bunch of different resumes of mine, all the different revisions it's gone through. And she's tough. She's like, cut this out, cut this out. But then after it's like shining and glowing, it's great. So Laura Neal is tough. She's honest, but she's the sweetest person also. So it's great. And then, you know, always, like Riley said, ask your peers for advice on resumes and how to make it better. And you can reach out to professors and reach out to anyone, you know, in the PMC. And then LinkedIn and Instagram have a lot of great resources. DreamWorks Careers, they post career tips every Tuesday on Instagram. And Nickelodeon Cartoon Universe is a YouTube channel, and they post a lot of great career advice too. And then a recent resource I became aware of was the Student Life and Leadership YouTube channel. And they just created a video. It's only 20 minutes long if you search it up on your own. It's called How to Brag About Yourself. And that was really great because they talked about how to, brag about yourself in a resume, in a cover letter, in an interview, and not just focus on what it is you did, but the result. And not just the result, but how you added to it, and showcasing your work ethic, your skills. So that I would recommend you look that up. Just search that on YouTube if you want to screenshot this, because that's another great resource I just found out about. Okay, so enough of cover letter, portfolio, all that. I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience with Netflix animation. So I guess before, I'll just, like Riley, I thought it was really cool to hear how he got that opportunity. Mine's a lot simpler. I just applied to a bunch of places and got rejected by all but Netflix, and then I got I got an email saying like you're moved down to round 2 of the review. And I was like, okay, and then I waited like 2 months, I think, and then I heard back saying that they wanted to schedule a phone call with me the next day, which was a lot, and it was really exciting. And then I did that, and then I had a second interview with the head of story on the film that I ended up working on, who was my mentor. And then I found out I got the job, and then I started the job. So that's about it. So I would just say, I guess, just on that note, don't be discouraged by rejections. A door, the right door, whatever it will be, will open. So just have faith. And okay, so my experience, I started out basically for the first few weeks with the other trainee. So my experience was unique because I worked alongside another trainee. Her name's Shreya. She's super talented. She's amazing. And we both were put on this film as an unannounced film. And we met with our mentor, who's the head of story on that film. And he started us off for the first few weeks on all these story lectures and composition lectures. And we watched all these videos and did these practices. It was amazing and it was intense. But I learned so much. And we had a few meetings with the film team, and we got to meet with all the people there, which was really neat. And then we started working on a personal story. So that was the first month of the program, where the trainee, Shreya, and I, we kind of wrote our own stories, and we went through bunch of revisions on that with our mentor, because he's a big story guy, a big logic person. He always asked all these logic questions, like this doesn't work because of this, and why is this? So we pretty much made our stories as bulletproof as possible, so there could be no questions, no question of clarity. And then we thumbnailed it, and we were going to finish it, but unfortunately we ran out of time because the director wanted to move us on to actual storyboarding work on the film. So we pitched the thumbnails to the story team, and they gave us their feedback. And that's where that project ended. I'm working right now actually to pick that back up and finish it for my portfolio. But then before we actually got onto professional work, we would sit in on the story pitches with the story artists, and we would hear the director, review it, and he would give his notes, and we'd see them pitch it. And then Shreya and I, we were given a montage sequence of the film, and we basically, started working on that. And that consisted of weekly storyboard pitches and check-ins with the director. And she and I would, have our thumbnails the first week and pitch those to him. He'd be like, okay, let's do this like that. Let's change this. Let's develop that, working from the script. And then every week we would get written up notes by the production supervisor, and she would just give us all the notes from the director, a recording of the pitch session, and we would just, work on that on our work hours. So a lot of the work at Netflix was, you know, independent, if that makes sense, where you don't have all of these constant check-ins, at least as time went on. In the beginning, when we started on our first sequence, Shreya and I, we had a lot of meetings with our mentor, and he would check in with us before our check-in with the director, just to make sure, you know, we know what we're doing it well. And then it kind of just progressed from there. The Shreya and I split off, and we got assigned our own sequences in the film, and we just kept doing one after the other. It was like a multi-week process per sequence, so it was like, you know, anywhere from like 3 to 4 weeks or less, where, you know, first week would be thumbnail pitch, next week would be stepped out, like the thumbnails would all be like on one page and you would pitch it, and the next week would be, you know, stepped out one board at a time, and they'd be rough, and then the director would, you know, either say like, let's add this, let's take that out, let's change this, because there's always, you know, notes, and then you just keep going till it's all good to go. And then we upload it onto this program called Flix, and that's like a storyboard editing website. And that's how it went. And then throughout the program, there were also meet and greets. So the recruiters for the story program, they connected us with a bunch of really, really cool artists from the studio. And we got to meet them and hear about their projects they're working on and ask them questions. And those were about every month, I believe, or every week, every 2 weeks maybe. And then there were also one-on-one conversations with my mentor, where I would ask him like, hey, can you give me a perspective demo? I don't know how to do this camera move. I've never done this. Can you maybe give me some advice? There's definitely a lot of reworking of my storyboard approach. And I had to kind of reinvent just the way I would approach it, which was tough. It was really tough, but I learned a lot. Okay, advice. I know it's 4 o'clock, so I'll try to speed this up. And if you guys have questions, feel free to ask. Advice, take lots of notes. I had like filled up like 2 notebooks, you know, in all the meetings, because the stuff you're going to learn in an internship is invaluable, and just make sure you're ready to write it down. Always be prepared for every meeting. You know, you'll stand out if you do. During the story meetings with the director, when I was in the thumbnail phase, I would you know, present alternative thumbnails and be like, hey, like, I know this isn't what you asked for, but this is something else. But I didn't just do that. I first drew what the director wanted, and that's like important. You know, like, make sure you do what their vision is. But if you have the time, if you want to make the time to, you know, add additional ideas that they can, you know, think about, that is a really good idea, and it helps, you know, make you a valuable asset. Get involved in as many ways as you can. That's an important thing. The studio had a bunch of speaker events, and our film has like a film club every other week, where it's kind of like book club. We discuss a film, so I would attend all of those. And I worked to kind of like coordinate a little game night with the story team, which was really fun. We played Scriblio, but the rule was they had to use their mouses, because obviously they're all great drawers. So that was fun to see. And then, like Riley said, always send thank you emails, write Christmas cards if you can, always go the extra mile. And those thank you emails, if you, like with the meet and greets, when I met with professionals, I would always say, like, I would mention something that they said, because it not only helps me remember their advice, but it shows them that I'm listening and I took something to heart. And yeah, try to show who you are, and those opportunities will come through these extra things like events and game nights and film clubs. And it shows who you are, but also shows you're really passionate to be a part of this team. And connect with everybody you worked with on LinkedIn too. And never be afraid to ask for help. You know, and especially even for deadlines, at times there were times when school was crazy, and I said, hey, can we do the pitch review with the director tomorrow instead, or like Friday instead of Wednesday? Because you want to make sure you tell them ahead of time, instead of the deadline you don't have it. Don't let that happen. And then, yeah, never be afraid to ask for help. I would tell my mentor, like, I've never done a camera move like this. Like, do you have any advice? Or, you know, ask for help on perspective and stuff like that. And there was a time where I just met with my mentor and I said, hey, could I talk to you about my performance and how do you think I'm doing? And, you know, just like a review on that. And that really helped combat my imposter syndrome, because I was like, they're gonna fire me. I know it. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I'm terrible. Probably they hate me. But that wasn't true at all. He was like, you're doing great. Keep it up. So don't be afraid, to ask for help. And he said that in the review. Like, he really appreciated that I asked all these questions, like during the pitch meetings, and would ask questions of logic, like where's the camera needs to be, and that kind of stuff. So don't be afraid to do that, especially when you're an intern, when you're learning is a focus. Okay, and then some big challenges, definitely time management. That was a struggle for me, balancing the PMC and school and this job was a lot, and family time too. And it was hard. So that was a big lesson. And I think setting boundaries really helped me. And I'm going to come to that in a bit. But storyboarding workflow, that was another thing where I kind of, I was just going off of like what I've learned, but mostly like my knowledge and my experience doing it. And there were a lot of things I was making mistakes, like for camera moves, and making sure that it's hard to explain, but like for camera moves, making sure that you draw like a master layout of that camera move instead of drawing bits and pieces and moving it. Because when the editor goes in, they'll want to move around that master layout. So if you have it just, sections, I don't know if you understand that, but anyways, there's a lot of things I had to rework, like my approach to thumbnailing and drawing characters. And but I mean, I was able to overcome those, and I still am working on those things through, the mentorship of my mentor and just constant practice, and remembering that life is a constant hill, like a climb. It's a climb, and that's okay. And then imposter syndrome, that was a big thing too. But yeah, some lessons learned from those mistakes were that there's definitely power in positivity. I mean, I think we all get nervous, but I was really nervous during every pitch meeting. It was like, they're gonna hate it. This could be better. But I realized, like, you make better drawings when you believe in yourself. So, always try to have positivity, because that is a real power if you've got that. And like I said, life's a climb, like Hannah Montana. It really is, and that's okay. My mentor was telling me, he was like, films really aren't about the finished product. It's not about, we finished it, yay, that's what we were all looking for. It's about being in the trenches and solving those story problems and working in the team and being, okay with not everything being perfect, because you're still working through it, and that's where the real joy and excitement comes. And then everything's temporary. That was something that Robin Lynn told me, and that was just really powerful, because it just made me remember this, like, no matter what, like in life, like if things are really tough, if an internship is really hard and your schedule is just crazy, like that's not going to last forever. But even if it's super, and like that doesn't mean it's a bad thing, but also if it's super great and you love it, like that's not going to last. So just try to savor, every moment. If you get one, just savor every moment of it, and really take advantage of, the connections you'll have there. Reach out to as many people as you can, and learn from them, and you'll have a great experience if you do. And exactly, Alexis, every experience is a lesson. And then setting boundaries, that was a big thing for time management. Just setting boundaries between all these different things, and making sure while I was working on Netflix stuff, I wouldn't check my phone, even though it was a big distraction and was not perfect. But making sure you have those boundaries and setting those work hours, and communicating that to people, and making time for family and things outside of your work as well is super, super important. And then full-time versus part-time. So at Netflix, I started in July, and then I worked till the end of December. So first I was full-time there, but then once school hit, I was working part-time. So I worked on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So if you get an internship during the semester, you'll need at least 2 days a week free. 3, I say, would be ideal. And make sure you lower your class schedule. I only took production in an art history class last fall, because I also counted PMC as like another equal responsibility in class. So try to take easier classes if you can, and make sure you talk to your professors because they'll want to work with you, because you'll want to prioritize your internship. And something that Cassidy Flor, I'm really bad at last names, but she's also an alumni. She told me a long time ago, sign up for multiple classes when you're registering. If you can, sign up for the same class, but at different schedules during the week, and then drop those certain ones in order to have options in a flexible schedule as you plan out your internship. Because it's better to have, more classes, and you can drop and say, hey, if you want me to work Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I can drop these, or if you want me to work Tuesday, Thursday, just to have those options. And try not to take production while in an internship, because that's a death sentence. Okay, that's it from me. So if you have any questions for not both, all three of us, because Duong is here now. So welcome. We are here to answer those.
I know in the chat they asked what website you used for your portfolio.
Oh, I used Weebly. It's free.
Yeah, that's what I used to.
I use Adobe Portfolio, but I am highly thinking of changing to a different platform because I find it being a little limited, but it is really cool. You can buy like the domain name for a year and it's only like $7.
For a whole year? Sounds like a bargain to me. And there's a question from Sabby specifically for you. What was your experience like at DreamWorks?
So yeah, I can talk about my experience at DreamWorks a bit. One thing that I really like about DreamWorks is that you get a lot of hands-on experience. I'm sure like at Nick and Netflix you get the same experience too. Like you actually get to help out the pipeline, and that is something that I really admire about DreamWorks. And I feel like I learned a lot. I guess I can say like overall, there's like three things you do as an intern. First is like the intern events where you learn a lot from your peers, different panels, recruiter panels, or like former intern panels, the production coordinator panels, and they even have a storyboard 101 panel. So, and you can also like get like mixers with like the other interns too. And then the second is like the production events, which is like your production meetings and doing your intern production tasks and learning about the pipeline. That is very helpful. And I guess the third one is like your self, like extracurricular, which I categorize that as like for informationals. And if you ever want to do like practice tests, they're open for that too. So DreamWorks is like very open for you to learn as an intern, and nobody ever says no to you, and they're very welcoming and friendly. So yeah, hope that helps.
Awesome. I can answer the next one. I know you mentioned in your internship tasks a bit. What was your day-to-day like? Yeah, so for me, I usually kind of get on at like at 9 a.m. I work from 9 to 6, like full days. So I'll get up at 9 and I'll help ingest shipments from Technicolor, which is like our overseas animation studio. And then after that, one of the like big tasks they gave me and my co-intern is to like create an asset library. Because it's a 3D show, like we have a bunch of 3D assets. And so we've kind of been organizing them so that, oh, really? That's cool. Technically, they do okay. Everyone on my production always talks badly about Technicolor, but it's a hard show to do. And yeah, and so we've been organizing all of the assets and like trying to make Shotgun work as well as possible for our artists because it's kind of confusing. Like production understands it, but they don't as much. And then I'll usually attend some meetings, like animation reviews, take some notes on those so that we can send that over to Technicolor. And then usually during the course of a week, I'll have at least like one informational where I just like message someone in Nickelodeon and kind of hear about their job. So I do a lot of those, a lot of intern classes, like Duong said. Yeah, that's kind of, I mean, not it, but yeah, that's like a general day for me. Yeah. I'm going to ask Crystal's question because I think it's geared towards Madison. On storyboarding, what is the most important part of the process, in your opinion?
That's a good question. I would just say, like, I guess thumbnailing. Something that like my mentor stressed throughout the program consistently was clarity, making sure everything's clear. And I think like thumbnails is like a good way to do that. If it's clear in the thumbnail and in your pitch to like a director and they can understand it, then you'll be set, you know, and then the rest is kind of just, you know, cleaning up and not necessarily cleaning up, but making things, you know, clearer. But that's something, yeah, the director also said, like to the whole team is like clarity, not clean, is like key for the drawings and everything. There's a lot of, you know, there's some rougher drawings and stuff. So I guess just making sure everything's clear, the emotion is clear, the acting is clear, the staging is clear, all of that. It's good, like something I developed over the time of the program. I made like a little checklist for myself. So when I ever started a new sequence, I went over this checklist and it had stuff, you know, like on thumbnails, like just getting those down, not being super laborious over those. And then like clarity and asking all these questions to make sure I'm covering all that. I should have probably included it, but I can post that somewhere. It helps me at least, but yeah, I would say clarity.
Awesome. Some helpful stuff. A specific question for Duong. Since this is your second internship and it's online, how does it compare to in-person? Example, note-taking, how are tasks done differently?
Well, thank you for asking. Yes, it is very different. And I think it is also different because of the nature of the two studios I interned at. So for Cartoon Network and DreamWorks, Cartoon Network I interned on a 2D show, and DreamWorks I interned on a CG show. And those two have, yeah, it's very different in the nature of the pipeline, but also in the nature of like where the production was. So when I interned on We Baby Bears, it was like the beginning of the production, and even the designers haven't even come in yet. So I was more involved in the story, or like I was more shadowing the story process, writing process, and voice records. Whereas at DreamWorks, I actually get to see the production moving like full blast. So design, even the CG comps were in, and the whole like picture was like already moving together. There's even a post-production team. So that was really cool because I get to observe the entire pipeline, and actually like being part of it helped me understand it more. I think Cartoon Network is like a very great internship, especially if you're starting out, because you get to shadow. At least for me, I get to shadow and actually like see how animation like was made, and learn from my production crew and see the voice record. And I think what's very special about Cartoon Network is that you get to work on a pitch Bible, and you learn a lot about like art and writing, story. So I think that's super cool. Regarding online and in person, with online, I would say one thing I didn't expect was how packed everything was, like meeting wise. Everything is down to the minute. You hop off a meeting at 11, and then you get to another meeting at 11 too. So it's just like so packed, and if you don't, I was very bad at this, but you should schedule like breaks in between, or else you're gonna get like major fatigue. Um, and I guess like with another thing with online is you really should have like a window with your calendar next to you. If the studio like DreamWorks uses Google Calendar, it should always be there, because when you're doing your task, it's very easily to get tunnel vision and forget about the time and miss a meeting. So I definitely did that. And mistakes happened. So I'm telling you this so you can learn from my mistakes. But I think I guess the last thing I would say about interning online is that you really need to be proactive and communicative. If you have any questions, you should like write it all out in like a master document or something. And then when you have like a daily touch base with your supervisor, like ask away, because if you just ask small questions throughout the day, it's a little distracting to their work, and not as effective if you like ask in person through like an online video. Um, so yeah, just you have to be like extra communicative if in person than in person for sure.
Good stuff. The Zoom is definitely tricky with the internships.
Riley,
Yeah.
I want you to answer Ad's question. I think that one's really interesting at the top.
Yeah, I was gonna get to that one.
Okay.
Okay, you're good, you're good. We had mentioned that asking questions to recruiters via email to maintain a conversation connection after the first meeting was beneficial, or some examples of such questions, conversations. I think the email that I sent after having my first interview was like, thank you so much for meeting with me. It was super great. I forget the like exact things that we talked about, but I definitely was like, it was so great to hear about like this specific thing that Nickelodeon had. I think it was like, it's so great to hear about the intern classes that you guys provide within the internship. That sounds super awesome, and definitely something I would benefit a lot from learning. And then I like just basically tried to extend the conversation, be like, I was curious if there are any like opportunities for artistic roles. I think I asked some questions about like other specific classes. Like if you have any other information about other classes, I'd love to hear about them. What you mentioned sound great, and any other information would be great. Just to form my opinion about the studio. Basically, just like anything that you can ask about their program makes it like easy for them to know that you're like actively excited about their program specifically, instead of just being someone who's like applying to every single one. Like the more you know about their program, the more they're going to be like, oh, this person's committed to our studio. And so I was always mentioning in my follow-up emails like specific things that their program had that I really appreciated and would like love to take part in, that like made me excited about their program specifically, rather than maybe some other programs, which I would have happily accepted as well. But making them like feel that loyalty from you is something that I think is really good to include in those. And I'm sure y'all have some insight you could put in this question too. I don't have to be the only one that answers it. Yeah.
No, I think you did it really well.
You don't have to. All right, that's fine. That's fine.
You answered it perfectly, Riley.
Okay. Cool.
And I learned a lot from that too, which is great.
Okay.
Because I'm not the best at that. Like I'm either just like, hi, I hope you're doing well. That's like, goodbye. I don't know what to say in my email. So that's really helpful, Riley. Thank you. Duong, did you want to say something?
I would say if you say in an email, ask for an informational.
Oh yeah.
Like, and then meet up with them in person,
Mm-hmm.
and then ask away all of your questions. Like in the end of the day, what are your questions pertaining to your portfolio?
That's a good one. Yeah, I think recruiters are often doing a lot of the question asking. So for you to like turn the tables is something that they value a lot. Were there any in here that any of y'all wanted to answer specifically? I just answered one, so.
There's a question. What's the best advice for someone who doesn't have a lot of experience or stuff to add to a resume? Do you guys want to go first?
I just put class experiences, like as you guys saw in my resume earlier. I picked the most relevant ones, like storyboarding, pre-production, and then my honors storyboarding VR project, because I thought those are all relevant, and kind of listed out what I did, like organized the assets for pre-production, you know, created an animatic, storyboarded under a schedule, that kind of stuff. So definitely use your classes if you think those are going to help.
Yeah, I think one thing to keep in mind too is like for internships, they're not expecting you to have like a 3-year industry job like prior to like going in, or like 10 other internships. Like they're very aware this is like very likely your first opportunity to get a foot into the industry. So like, and like I said earlier, like highlighting accomplishments that you're proud of is probably the best way to like show that you are someone who can grow from things and someone who's like willing to learn. And so like even if you don't have a lot of like work experience in a classical sense, like if you learned a ton like doing an individual project, that's definitely something worth highlighting on a resume, because it's a way to show the recruiter that you're learning.
That's great. And to add on to that, I know that there's a lot of group projects available at school. I think group projects is a great way to know to show that you know how to work in a collaborative environment. And also 24-hour animation is great too. Definitely add that in.
Yeah, that's a great one. Cool. Let's ask this one because I think it's kind of fun. What are some of the questions that they asked during interviews so I can be prepared? Were there any like kind of curveball questions that y'all got?
I can't think of any like crazy ones out of the blue. But like some that I remember being asked were, you know, sometimes they're more formal, sometimes it's more direct to the point, but there's definitely going to be like, tell me about yourself, you know, and knowing how to answer that. And Cassandra Thompson, again, I'm going to promote Cassandra Thompson. She has multiple videos on that and it's great. So yeah, tell me about yourself. Sometimes maybe I've heard they might ask you like, why are you special? Like what sets you apart from the thousands of other applicants that have applied for this position? Maybe, maybe not. Always helps to have an answer. You know, be ready to talk about your experiences. And like Cassandra Thompson talked about, like, tell me about yourself. Don't say like, oh, I love, you know, well, I mean, it's good to add personal notes, but basically you want to structure that question as to, and this is why I am here today. You know, everything should lead to that conclusion. Like this is why all these experiences have led me to here, prepared me for this. And then, you know, they might ask you like, what do you like about the show you might work on, if you know about it, or why the studio? What do you like about the studio? What are your strengths and weaknesses? And then also, you know, like how have you dealt with a difficult situation? Those are the ones I know. Yeah.
Yeah, I know like the weirdest one I got was like, if you were a character like from our studio, which one would you be and why? So like knowing some characters from the studio could be helpful going into an interview if you don't.
I don't think this is. I think the weird question or like the hard question was like one of the things that Madison mentioned. But I noticed at DreamWorks they kind of want to know what you watch, and it doesn't have to be a DreamWorks movie. And I feel like that's how they gauge like your personality in the end. Like interviews are for like, oh, if you fit into the team or not. Because if you actually got an interview, that means you're pretty qualified. So in the end they want to know like who you are. So also like be honest. And yeah, Madison did a great point, like lead to why you're here today.
Good stuff. Good stuff. What are some things that DreamWorks looks for in a resume or cover letter?
I guess I can answer this. I don't know about cover letters specifically because I never had like a cover letter review at DreamWorks, but we had like a casual resume review with our intern group, and I would say they want to see it look like clean and clear. You don't need to have like color, but make sure there's like, I'm not sure if Madison and Riley already went through this, but make sure it's clear like where you worked and the role you were and the time. and then with the task, like with action verbs first and keeping the tense correct. So I feel like what Madison and Riley probably have gone through before is already very helpful in what they look at. I don't think they look for something specifically. They just want to know that you are passionate and keeping yourself like involved, like in any shape or form.
And that's a good one because the DreamWorks internship is live. There are applications for it. Okay, we have one more question on here from Audrey. What if it's a cold call and you're not given contact info to send a thank you email? A cold call would be like from a recruiter, like scheduling an interview. I guess I've never really had a cold call, so I'm a little unfamiliar. If anyone else.
I don't think I've had a cold call before, but when I got my like news, it's through email for the interviews, and then with the like the good news, like you got it, is like through a phone. So I haven't experienced this either.
Yeah, I mean, I got a call after my like interview at CTN, and they were like, "We're interested in like talking with you more." If that's a cold call, then yes. But it was from the same person that I met with, so I had already had her contact information, and I think it's probably a good idea to get the person's name if they call you. I'm sure you do, and I think it's pretty easy to find their email, especially if they are a recruiter. I think they make that information pretty accessible, I think.
I think maybe if you're very curious at the end of the call, you can say, "Oh, may I contact you with later? Like, how can I contact you?" So, if you really want to, you should do that. That's very smooth.
Yeah,
I
that's
never
a good
done
one.
that.
That's a good one.
I've never also I haven't had a cold call, but I would suggest like if if you're concerned about maybe getting one, like whenever you apply for that position, and I would just just start watching Cassandra Thompson videos, contact Laura Neal for a mock interview. She does those too, like as soon as possible. And I think it doesn't hurt to be prepared, right then and there. Because if it's a cold call, I guess you'll never really know when they call. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I don't see any more questions, and it is 4:31. So if there aren't any more questions, and if no one has anything else to add, I think we're probably good.
Cool. Anyone?
I guess one of the last things is that interviews are really hard, resumes are really hard. Make sure you have all the eyes on it as you possibly can. And the PMC group chat is there, so make sure you connect with your peers and have them pick apart your applications.
Yep.
In a very constructive way.
Good advice. And a good resource to reach out to the people in PMC.
Yeah, take advantage of that. Like we certainly have. And shout out to Alexis for being here, because Alexis, like I've bugged you so many times, so thank you. And we're just sharing what you've shared with us, so thank you, Alexis, and everyone for being here.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks everyone for asking your questions and showing up. We really appreciate it. And we hope you have a good weekend.
Have a good weekend, everyone. Thank you.